Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Premium Public Video Forecast discussion for February 2nd, 2024. It's been a couple of days since I did a video, so it's good to be back. We have a lot to talk about, so let's dive right into the current weather pattern we have right now. This is called an omega block, and you could tell why it's called an omega block because it literally looks like the Greek symbol omega. So what that usually features is a trough on the west coast, a ridge over the plains and the Canadian plains and the northern plains and the western Great Lakes, and a trough over the eastern Great Lakes, the northern mid-Atlantic, well, the mid-Atlantic and New England. And what this sets up is a series of short waves that are going to dive south into this trough axis. And what happens when that happens is that these short waves, as they round the ridge, they weaken because this is an area of convergence and confluence. So it's the air coming together in the upper levels as it reaches the base of the trough here. And so that causes sinking air and weakening of short waves as they approach. So as a result, a lot of the short waves that are moving through are producing scattered showers here and there, but nothing really spectacular as far as a storm threat. I know there's been some rumors about a major storm possible for the mid-Atlantic, and honestly, I didn't really make much of a big deal about it because you'd really need everything to come together just right, have an upper level low just get trapped under this whole block. And I wasn't really all that impressed with the setup, certainly not for the northern Atlantic. This is a suppressed pattern that keeps the subtropical jet stream well south of the region, so we also are relatively dry, aside from a few pesky showers here and there. No significant precipitation events, as all your storm threats are out here in the Atlantic and will remain so as this ridge slowly inches its way towards our area. And so we're going to continue to be in this northerly wind pattern. So is this it? Is this the end of winter? Well, if you believed in groundhogs, one in, was it around Western Pennsylvania, Puxatony Phil, well, he says, hey, spring's coming. And I can understand that since the rodent who was sleeping in his bed, very comfortable, probably was irritable and didn't have time to check any of the model guidance because he was sleeping, and now some guy rips him out of his home. So obviously, if that was me, I'd be like, whatever you want to hear, just leave me alone. I want to go back to bed. And so naturally, he says, it feels warm. So spring's on the way. And so understandably, that is what he has forecasted. And I always say that, with a 40% accuracy overall, not too bad for a rodent, not too bad at all. But it's fun for the kids. So that's the important thing. It's fun for the kids, but I would not base that forecast if you are in the business of having weather impacts on your business operations, or if you're actually interested in the long range forecast. So this would certainly lead to a mild weather pattern for us as this ridge approaches. And that is certainly true. And we'll talk about that in just a few moments. But there are changes on the way. So let's take a look at some of the tropical aspects here. So this is the SOI, which is something I use to track tropical forcing. And we've been in a positive state, so much so that it pushed the daily values into a neutral/positive state, which typically you see in La Nina, but we are in an El Nino, so this was not going to last. And as a result, our daily values have been plummeting. This is a sign of change. So this is a sign of change to a warmer pattern, which we are gradually moving into. And this is a sign of change of a colder, stormier pattern on the way. And combine that with what we're seeing with the MJO right here. What we're seeing is the MJO has moved through its warm phases. So after our stormy period through about mid-January, it has been very quiet and relatively mild, which pretty much locks in very nicely with what you would expect in phases 3, 4, and 5 of the MJO. Now we move through phase 6, which is another mild phase, but now we're in phase 7, which is kind of a changeable phase. Now, it doesn't surprise me that we're seeing this loop here in the forecast over through February 15th. Why? Because we're dealing with a block, and any block that you have is not going to just disappear very quickly. It's going to have to typically put up a fight to get knocked down and broken down. And that's what we're going to be going through over the next 10 days. But there is very strong support of the MJO moving into phase 8 for the middle and end of February. Phase 8 and then to a neutral state. So neutral state means that El Nino is basically the dominant forcing mechanism in the tropics. This phase here, coinciding with an El Nino, supports a very stormy pattern. So that is a warning sign. If you are canceling winter, ending winter, getting ready to remove your plows, getting ready to just take out the spring clothes and get ready for spring training baseball, which I get, trust me, I understand. But this is a signal that says, hold on, this might not be such a good idea. And we're seeing that also in the ensembles here as well. And we're seeing this in the CFS here with a little bit of bad data. Apparently it went back to the future and back. But you can see the general theme here. So you get the idea. Changes are on the way. Now, why would I be confident of what the MJO is saying? Well, take a look at the observations. And we went from dead silent around the date line here to a lot of convection starting to develop around the date line. This is a sign of a change, and you don't have to use a model to take a look at it. These are the literal observations. And so when we start to see convection like this starting to bubble up and take shape here, well, that is a warning sign as well, that it has a potential here of shifting this pattern to one where we would have a better chance, not a guarantee, but a better chance for East Coast cyclogenesis, cold air dropping south. But what about cold air dropping south? The last time we talked about the polar vortex, it was consolidating, and it has, and it is pulling that Arctic air up towards the Arctic. But changes here are on the way. So, as you know, we remain in this cubeo easterly phase, which increases the potential for stratospheric warming and disruption of the polar vortex. So we take a look at the forecast here. Again, this is the observation. Now let's take a look at the forecast. And the European guidance strongly supports weakening of the stratospheric winds. Nothing like what we saw in January, but enough. So this is what you would expect average, okay? So anything above here, which is where we're at right now, is a strong polar vortex. Anything below here is a weak polar vortex, one that could stretch. And so that is essentially what we're seeing. Very strong agreement here on the European of a weakening polar vortex. Now, a weakening polar vortex means that you have a higher potential for high latitude blocking and sending the polar and Arctic air masses down towards the mid latitudes, like where we live. Meanwhile, we take a look at the EP flux. Well, 5 days out, pretty strong signal of transport of heat towards the poles. 10 days out, same indication here. Let's go 15 days out. Well, even stronger. So what does this tell us? Well, this tells us that the potential here for stretching, weakening of the polar vortex is pretty strong. We're seeing it on both the European guidance, the European ensembles, the GFS, and the GFES. So that's a pretty strong signal that we're going to see weakening in the polar vortex. Then we go take a look at the weeklies here, and you can see there's our block. It gradually gets knocked down as we go through the next 10 days. And then you start to see this support by the middle of February with a trough in the east. And notice here, we got support here with the subtropical jet stream and the polar jet stream. We're starting to see a weak negative NAO signal, a robust negative EPO signal. And we continue to see that all the way into March. Now, I want to be very clear about this. The potential is here for a couple of winter storms. I will not guarantee you will not see 45-day snow maps, at least on my feed. But what I would tell you is that typically from experience with El Ninos in February, you do not let your guard down, because this is the type of pattern that can produce some impressive storms as you go through February and March. Now, As you move through February, March, there's going to be several factors you have to consider, like the sun angle, whether this precipitation starts in the middle of the day or if it starts in the morning, and then you set up a snowpack that allows for further accumulation. The forecast gets a lot more tricky. So, yes, winter is going to be coming back, and it's going to be coming back very angry and very annoyed that you thought that it was leaving already. You tried to kick it out of the house too early, and it's going to have plenty of potential to produce. Now, by mid-March, well, I'm not as impressed, but we'll see what happens. We'll get to that as we go a little bit further. But you can see what the potential is. And then you can see over the next 10 days, again, pretty quiet around our neck of the woods. Not much really going on. There's that ridge starting to push through. And then as we head towards the end of the 10-day period, we start to see our change in the weather pattern. That's supported on the European guidance, the GFS guidance. Again, here, let me go back here real fast. What's driving that change? Well, there's our trough around the Aleutians. We start to get our heights starting to build. This feature starts to move more towards the Hudson Bay. So now you don't have that limiting factor on the ridge as this shifts. And this shows up also nicely on the GFS. And you can see on the GFS going long range, again, you don't trust the details, but you get the overall theme. The overall theme is that this ridge is able to build, this trough is able to dig, this trough is able to dig, and then you start to see signs of the negative NAO starting to show up here. This feature would have to drop a little bit further south to allow this ridge to build. And then you take a look at the European guidance here. This is the European ensembles. Again, you kind of get the same theme playing up. A little bit more robust with the negative NAO, but this is a weak negative NAO signal, which isn't a bad thing because that means that you don't suppress the storm track. And if you get everything lined up just right, well, things get pretty interesting around here. So we'll see how this all plays out. So no, winter is not over, but we get a continuation of our reprieve. And right now, this morning, we have an influence of that reprieve with a cold front approaching. You see winds starting to shift to the northwest here as that cold front moves through with a wave of low pressure. We have areas of showers and even some snow showers mixed in the higher elevations, with temperatures ranging from the mid to upper 30s over the northern interior, upper 30s to lower 40s along the coast. As we see on our surface map and radar from WeatherTap, there is our cold front that is moving through. There's our little wave of low pressure, and there is our precipitation with some snow mixed in. Not expecting much in the way of accumulation, a trace here and there in higher elevations, but nothing really all that impressive. There is our cold air transport starting to take hold. Okay, so this is going to keep us from, spiking up well above normal. This is pretty much seasonal temperatures, a marginal polar air mass dropping in. So not really impressive in terms of the cold air transport and the nature of the cold air. On the water vapor satellite picture, you can see that shortwave diving in. Again, here's our ridge. Here's the trough diving in. This has significantly weakened since it moved from the Hudson Bay. And so it's swinging through with some showers, but nothing impressive. And then because the trough is out here, there's your trough axis over here. Here's your divergence and diffluence out here. There is our storm that is starting to interact with the subtropical jet stream out towards the Atlantic. And that's where it's going to be over the next couple of days. So on the infrared satellite picture, you can see your strongest lifting is over the ocean, and then some marginal lifting here with some slightly cooler cloud tops. You can barely see it on the infrared because the lifting just isn't all that impressive. So over the next couple of days, that ridge will push towards us. And as it does so, the polar air masses will sneak in from New England and the St. Lawrence River Valley, supporting again seasonable temperatures. Nothing too warm, nothing too cold, pretty much what you expect for early February. So nothing all that impressive. And then as that ridge passes over us, at the same time, our temperatures will moderate to above normal. So we are going to be in a bit of a mild period through early February with that ridge axis pushing off the coast. And then you can start to see all that cold air balled up in Canada getting ready to push south as our ridge dissipates and we start to go from a large ridge to more of a bit of a zonal pattern with a slow press of the polar jet stream and the subtropical jet stream remaining active, sending shortwave after shortwave through the Gulf Coast. and our polar air mass is slowly pressing south, getting ready for that change. So over the next couple of hours, we're going to be dealing with these showers. Nothing really too impressive. Brief heavy downpours possible, but nothing that's going to produce any flooding or anything. We're talking about a tenth to maybe a half an inch in some spots of rainfall through the morning hours. And then by the evening hours, we pretty much dry out with just a few random flurries here and there dropping through, but nothing really all that significant. So for our forecast for today, again, a few showers moving through, temperatures ranging from the mid to upper 30s over the northern interior, lower to mid 40s along the coast. For tonight into tomorrow, high pressure will build into the region with scattered cloud cover. Look for lows in the mid to upper 20s over the northern interior, upper 20s to lower 30s along the coast. High temperatures in the upper 30s to mid 40s throughout the region. For Sunday, high pressure remains in control. Sky cloud cover is expected with low temperatures in the lower to mid 20s, high temperatures ranging from the lower to mid 40s. On Monday, high pressure remains in control with a storm passing well to our south. Look for scattered cloud cover with temperatures ranging from the lower to mid 20s for lows and upper 30s to lower 40s for highs. On Tuesday, high pressure remains in control. You kind of get the theme. It's going to be a quiet week with low temperatures in the upper teens to mid 20s for lows and high temperatures in the upper 30s to lower 40s. Again, the influence of that polar air mass keeps us pretty much seasonable as we start through February. Now, on Wednesday, that high pressure system starts to shift over us with low temperatures ranging from the upper teens to mid 20s and high temperatures ranging from the upper 30s to lower 40s. On Thursday, the high pressure system starts to push off the coast with more of a southwesterly wind that leads to warmer conditions with low temperatures in the upper 20s to lower 30s and high temperatures in the mid to upper 40s on the immediate coast, lower to mid 50s everywhere else. And on Friday, a high pressure will exit, a cold front will approach. I'm going to hold off on the showers until more towards midnight with this cold front. So look for increasing cloud cover with low temperatures in the upper 30s to lower 40s and high temperatures ranging from the upper 40s to lower 50s on the immediate coast, lower to mid 50s everywhere else. That is your forecast discussion for today. Have a wonderful day. And as always, stay safe out there.